What was the least impressive 1 in a million chance you've ever seen? I walked in on my GF who appeared to be having sex with another guy. As it turns out she just tripped and landed on his dick. Haha. The odds on that happening must be pretty damn high. I love her so much. She is so clumsy. I just flipped a coin 20 times and the outcome was HHHTTHTTHHTHTHTHTHTHH. Chances of that are 1 in 1,048,576. Not sure if this belongs here, but I've been wanting to tell this story and this looks like the best place to put it, so here goes. The year was 1993. I'm 13 years old. It's summertime and my parents are taking us to Orlando, FL. We live in Texas. So, we spend one day at Disney World and we were about to leave. I think we were waiting for that huge shuttle looking thing. Anyways, both of my parents are smokers. Any chance they could light up, they would. Since there were no signs in that area, they light up. I see a woman and her husband not far behind us, and the woman is really pissed. She taps my mom on the shoulder and asks my mom, could you please refrain from smoking? I have children. I remember these exact words. My parents tried not to make a scene, but my mom said, I don't see any signs, and the woman started coughing in my mom's face. My dad told her to fuck off. Her husband tried to intervene, but backed down once he saw how big of a man my dad is. It was one big mess. Anyways, we leave and that's that. 2 years later, my parents take me and my brother to Waffle House in our hometown in Texas after my basketball game. Back then, there were smoking and non-smoking sections in certain restaurants. We were in the smoking section. So, we order our food and we're waiting. My dad lights up, and the lady in the booth behind us gets up, comes over to us and says, could you please refrain from, and turns back to her husband and tells him they're leaving. My dad looked at us after they left and said, wasn't that the same bitch at Disney World? A turkey vulture dropped a rotting squirrel carcass through the sunroof of my car while I was driving. I'm not sure what the odds are, but I screamed like a little girl. I was playing disc golf and got a hole-in-one in the wrong basket. I live next to a golf course, so when golf balls fly into our yard, I hit them back. One day I had 2 balls fly in, so I took my 7-iron, and instead of flying over back to the golf course, I smacked it right into a telephone pole and the ball came flying back at me. I had to swat it away with my left hand. I kinda chuckled and hit the second ball and same exact thing happened. As a kid with poor understanding of probability, I managed to guess a CD key for Counter-Strike. This was actually very impressive to me at the time. When I was about 9 years old, my family was on vacation in South Carolina, and we played mini golf. My sister hit a wild shot that bounced out of our area and toward another group of players. At first we could not tell where my sister's ball went. Then she saw it, lodged in the butt crack of a large woman's pants. We were stunned, and my sister did not know what to say to the woman, who apparently had not noticed the golf ball stuck in her ass. Eventually my dad went over and politely asked for it back. The woman and her family thought it was hilarious. I once kicked an empty Powerade bottle and it hit a street sign pole, bounced off, flipped a few times in the air, and then landed upright in my jacket pocket. Nobody was around to see, but just for that moment, I was a god. I threw a stone at a tree, it bounced off the trunk, and landed on the branch just below and stayed there. The stone was about 1.5 inches and the branch was about 1 inch. I thought it was pretty impressive but no one else really cared. At a little league game I saw an unassisted, untaught triple play. Runners on first and second, kid up to bat pops up to the infield, ump calls infield fly rule, 1 out. Kid that was on first takes off running, not paying attention to the ball and blows past kid on second, 2 outs. Kid on second doesn't realize his foot is off the bag, ball comes down, bounces, and hits him in the leg, 3 outs. Probably the rarest possible play in baseball, made completely unimpressive cause it only happened due to the sheer ignorance of little kids that had no idea what they were doing. I flipped a poker chip into the air, and it landed on its side. It rolled straight into the chip pile of the guy who was about to win the hand. When in high school, I sneezed and all the power went out immediately. I joked and told everyone in class that I was a wizard. The lights come back on and about 2 minutes later, I sneezed again. And what do you know? We lost power again. The second time around I was in shock and the entire class just stared at me in awe. An act of love led to the intertwining of 2 strands of DNA, creating, out of the billions of possible individuals, a totally unique human. And that person was Fred Phelps. Used to never wear my seatbelt. And I mean never. One day I decided to put it on. Totaled my car 5 minutes later. Would have died without it. I was in North Alabama for a family reunion of sorts, my dad's high school reunion. A few of us, only my dad's side, were visiting the house where they grew up. It was my grandmother's house, the grandmother on my dad's side. My mom was busy with work and couldn't visit. We live in North Carolina. Basically we are in the kitchen eating or talking in the morning, and we hear commotion outside. We just remembered that there was a marathon happening in this tiny little town, and for some reason the marathon was going down my grandmother's tiny little street. So my dad's sister, brother, and I are standing around watching people run, when suddenly I see a familiar person. It's my uncle. But not my dad's brother from Alabama. My mom's brother. From Pittsburgh. Who had never been to this town in Alabama before. He just wanted to do this particular marathon. He didn't tell my family he was running in it. He didn't know my dad's family was from there. He didn't know he would be running by our house. Even weirder, this marathon had been going on for hours, and we only decided to step outside and watch for 2 or 3 minutes. I have never been so flabbergasted in my entire life. TL. Doctor saw my mother's brother, a runner, while at my father's mother's home, was a blunder. In high school, a friend of mine and I sat exactly diagonal from each other in the room, taking 2 of the 4 available corners. He threw a Skittle at me without telling me, and it landed flush in my ear hole. Was flicking Cheetos into my buddy's mouth at lunch back in middle school, but on one attempt flicked way too hard, and it went right over his head. The cheesy projectile proceeded to fly over the next table and towards a kid sitting at the table after that, landing in his mouth as he was about to take a bite of, insert lunchtime grill here. Got a referral for starting a food fight though. I was researching how long it takes a raindrop to fall from the sky and hit the ground, because I was blowing my mind with the odds of any given raindrop hitting my car. So it takes about 5 minutes for it to reach the ground, and the odds of my car intercepting the raindrop before it hits the ground is crazy low, because I'm miles away when the raindrop forms. Anyway, after I was done researching, I got in my car to run to Walmart, and a single large raindrop hit my windshield on a sunny day. Blew my mind, and was also an unimpressive story to tell. My friend had the original Bop It on his coffee table. I had Bop many times before, but never actually beaten it. I said, "Watch me dominate this thing," to a crowd of doubters and hecklers. I beat it on the first try. I have not, and will not ever pick up a Bop It again. I was at a party, and early in the morning, when we were a few people left, one of my friends decided to throw cookies at me. I got a crazy idea. He should throw it at my mouth, and drunk me would then catch it with, not my mouth, but with my teeth. You know, biting down when the cookie enters the mouth. Bam. Cookie caught between my teeth, and dead silence in the room. Then huge laughter for minutes as I took a bow for my back then awesome performance. I went on holiday. As I lay there in the nice sun, along comes the one person who I hate, who just happens to have flown to the same hotel as me during the same week. I can't really fathom how it happened, but I was playing softball, and we had a cone on the foul line. It was a small cone, maybe only 6 or 8 inches, and I hit the cone with a line drive and the ball stuck in the cone, and it wasn't like it knocked it up in the air, and it fell down into it or something. It was like it just nailed it, and then went inside the cone. I took a dump in my Lamello flow toilet at my house and it didn't clog. 1 in a million. When I was in kindergarten, I dared the slow kid in my class to put a ketchup packet under his tray and slam it. He did, and the ketchup shot about 20 feet straight into the eye of a girl at our table. I had to miss 10 minutes of recess for being the mastermind behind that. My mom moved to another state by herself to take up a job that involved visiting various parts of the state. At first, she told me and my brother where she was going or what she was doing, but after a few months, there was really no reason, as it was just random. So, she is visiting some small town in the middle of the state and is bored of her hotel room, so she goes out on the balcony. There she watches traffic go by on the small interstate and sees travelers stop in the parking lot across the street to stretch their legs or whatever. At one point, she sees a car stop and she sees a dog jump out of the car and run. And she thinks, oh, how cute. That dog is a beagle, just like the one my son has. Now thinking of her son, she calls him just to say hi, and then sees the dog's owner pick up his phone. Just a 1 in a million chance he happened to be driving through town on an unplanned visit to the coast. They hadn't told each other, as they assumed the other was busy. Maybe it's mildly impressive. But of all the 1 in a million chances I've heard of / been witness to, this was the least impressive. I was playing on this mini cliff, about 10+ feet high, in my friend's backyard, that had vines hanging down it. I slipped and fell off backwards / head first. I should have landed right on the rocks below head first, but a vine grabbed my foot and caught me before I hit the rocks. Probably saved my life, or at least saved me a ton of head trauma. I was maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing in line at a grocery store that my mom and I hardly ever went to. Just happened to be in the neighborhood, and we needed something, so my mom stopped there. As my mom and I are standing there, the guy behind us asks me what I think the lottery numbers will be that night. Pick 3. I told him what I thought they would be. I think it was 689. But not really sure anymore. We paid for our stuff and left. That night, the lottery numbers were what I said they'd be. A buddy and I were doing a little drinking and decided we wanted spaghetti. Before we boiled the needles, we each took one in our teeth and had a noodle fight. Of all the bad things that could happen, poked eye up the nose, I made a lunging strike which he turned away from, resulting in the noodle going straight down his ear hole and puncturing his eardrum. My little sister threw a small piece of slightly melted butter to the back part of my left shoulder. I picked it off with my left hand and threw it back in a downward swing way. It landed on the same spot of my left shoulder. My little sister now calls me Butter Magnet occasionally. One of my friends. This guy will succeed in anything under 2 conditions. It's a stupid ass bet. It will only work the first time. Last time we made a bet, I bet him he couldn't put a coin through a post box slot about 1 centimeter thick from 10 meters away. He took the coin, closed his eyes, screamed and flung the coin in the general direction. It went right in there. I now have to lick his balls. I was up north waiting for some work to come in, and me and a bud were bored. We decided to make a game with a roll of duct tape and a mini Dasani water bottle, where we would stand about 20+-4 feet apart and try to throw the bottle through the duct tape. On my first try I threw it like a spear, cap first. It went perfectly in the duct tape roll, somehow flipped around right after, and landed standing right side up between his legs. We quit playing after that. One time when I about 16, my tall friend and I, who was about 6 feet tall at the time, went to a trampoline warehouse. Trampoline place. I was really into doing backflips at the time and would do them over the yellow barriers there. So I got an idea that my friend should stand on the yellow barrier and I would do a backflip over him. I did the backflip, but was so not high enough above my friend, so my feet landed on his shoulders. From his shoulders my backwards momentum sent me doing another backflip of his shoulders, which I landed back on the trampoline on my feet.